Here are my 3 favorite suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. The first one is Powder Springs, which is in Cobb County. Also in Cobb County are cities like Marietta or Kennesaw or Smyrna, but Powder Springs is kind of on the west part of Cobb County. It's really close to West Cobb, which is something that a lot of people around here talk about. West Cobb is super popular, lots of shopping around there, lots of young families in West Cobb, and Powder Springs is kind of an extension of West Cobb. One of the biggest differences between Powder Springs and West Cobb is that you can find more home for your money in Powder Springs because it's farther west, farther away from the urban areas. And this is one of my favorite things about Powder Springs. It's much more of a quiet community, not a lot of crowds in Powder Springs, and the average home value here in this city is between $350 and $400, compared to Marietta, where the average is about $450 to $500, and the two are very similar. Powder Springs and Marietta have very similar amenities, a similar feel. Marietta is a much larger city, but Powder Springs has the more quiet country feel to it, and you can get more home for your money there. While Marietta has some more of the urban feeling areas, Powder Springs has more of like farm areas, much more wide open lots and rolling green hills. And this kind of peaceful environment is something that a lot of people are looking for in their new home. In addition to that, the downtown part of Powder Springs has much more of a historical feel to it. These red brick buildings that was super common all along Metro Atlanta is something that you would also find in Powder Springs. This city has done a great job of preserving that historic feel, and you can still walk through this area where the railroad goes through and some of the old buildings are there, and they've kind of converted those into restaurants and shops now. But the downtown area here is not very big. It's certainly not like downtown Marietta. It's much smaller and much quieter. And so if you're looking for an area that has more people and more of an urban feel, then Powder Springs might not be the right city. Overall, the vibe of Powder Springs is much more country feeling, much more rural. You know, there's going to be a lot more land for the homes. You know, it's not a lot of homes that are on top of each other in Powder Springs. There is a bit of new construction here, but it's not very common yet. I suspect that in a few years, it will be more common. There will be a lot more new construction in Powder Springs as more people are moving here and this becomes a more popular city. But right now, it's only really like on the main roads that you find new development for commercial areas and for residential areas. Something else to note here is that the schools in this area are not quite as good as Marietta. They're not terrible. I'd say the average school rating in Powder Springs is probably about a 7 out of 10, whereas in Marietta, the average school rating is like an 8 or a 9. So Powder Springs is still got some room to grow. So this is definitely something that Powder Springs needs to do better and to better serve the residents there. But I'm confident that the schools will get better. And when you look at the community that you can find there and the amount of home that you can find in Powder Springs, the rural feel and like the quiet suburban town, this is definitely one of the best areas in all of Metro Atlanta. So if you're thinking about moving to Powder Springs, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I love helping people get acquainted with my hometown. Suburb number 2 that is my favorite is Acworth, Georgia. Acworth is also in Cobb County. Kind of starting to see a trend here, but Acworth is in the most northern part of Cobb County. In addition to that, it's very close to Lake Allatoona, and Lake Allatoona is one of the highlights of this area. Lots of people come from all over Metro Atlanta for outdoor recreational activities around the lake. There's lots of hiking there, fishing. People will often take their boats out there. My family and I love to take our kayaks out there to Lake Allatoona, especially in the mornings. It's a great place to get away from the city. And so Lake Allatoona is very close to Ackworth. Depending on where you are in Ackworth, it could be a 5 to 15-minute drive to the lake. Also, you should know that on the southern part of Lake Allatoona, there's kind of a small section of the lake that is split off that's called Lake Ackworth. And there are a few homes right around Lake Ackworth, and this residential area kind of has like a lake town feel to it. Some of the homes look like they would be in a beach area. And so this part of Ackworth is a bit different from the rest of Ackworth. Also, right around Lake Ackworth is Cobble Park, and there's a playground there, there's a gazebo, a big green space area for playing, and there's access to the lake right there at Cobble Park. And then just south of Lake Ackworth is the downtown area. And when it comes to historic feeling downtown areas, downtown Ackworth really has that. It's certainly a lot of the red brick buildings, and it has that historic feel that they have preserved, and there are lots of shops and restaurants all along downtown Ackworth. And so this downtown area and this historic feel that you find in this city is really one of my favorite things about this city. It doesn't quite have the urban feel that you would see in Atlanta. It's not quite as busy as Marietta, even though it's about 20 minutes from Marietta, and it's not nearly as crowded as some of the bigger cities of Metro Atlanta. The average home value in this city is about $350 to $400, similar to Powder Springs, and this is a big deal, especially as home values continue to increase and interest rates continue to increase. Finding an area that has more affordable homes is super important, and that's what you can find in Ackworth. Plenty of community, plenty of things to do, and home values that don't break the bank. Now let's talk about the downsides of living in this city. If you're looking for an area that has an excellent economy and you're a young single person who wants to have plenty of job opportunities, Ackworth is not really the best place for that. Ackworth is more like a city where you get away from the crowds, get away from the busy economies. So this city does not have a lot of job opportunities. Also, there's not really a whole lot of things to do here. There's a few things, but it's nothing like Atlanta. You're not going to find a ton of restaurants and a ton of shopping. You're not nearly going to find the variety of things to do that you would see in Atlanta. So Ackworth does not really rival Atlanta when it comes to things to do. Also, the schools in Ackworth are kind of similar to Powder Springs. They really are not quite as good as some of the other schools that you would find in Marietta or Alpharetta. Again, I'm sure that they will get there as more people are moving there, but right now the schools in Ackworth are about a 7 out of 10. Keep in mind though that, as I've said in many other videos, you can go to a 7 out of 10 school and have an excellent teacher, or your student or your child can go to a 10 out of 10 school and have a poor teacher. So it really is something that you have to take with a grain of salt. There are a lot of sources for school qualities, and I'm sure that the residents of Ackworth would feel like their schools there are excellent. And then the third suburb of Atlanta that is my favorite is Woodstock, Georgia. Woodstock is in Cherokee County, and it's kind of on the north part of Metro Atlanta. And one of the highlights of Woodstock is the downtown area. Downtown Woodstock is super popular, with lots of the residents of Woodstock coming to this area for shopping and for restaurants. And this actually causes kind of a bit of a traffic problem through Woodstock, but it's well worth visiting downtown Woodstock. When it comes to the downtown areas of these small suburbs, this city has one of the best city centers. In addition to the shopping and the restaurants, there's also a playground that my kids love to play on. There's hiking trails around downtown Woodstock. There is a trail that leads to a dog park where there's regularly people walking up and down the paved trail. And so this part of Metro Atlanta is very trendy. There are a lot of young families moving to this area, and there are a lot of new things happening in Woodstock. There's a lot of new construction for residential areas, and there's a lot of new construction for commercial areas. Of the three suburbs that we've talked about so far, Woodstock is the one that I would say is growing the most and where home values are increasing the most. Right now, the average home value in Woodstock is about $400 to $450. So a little higher than Powder Springs and Ackworth, but still a little less than Marietta, which is also super interesting because I live in Marietta, but I'm only about 10 to 15 minutes from downtown Woodstock. So downtown Woodstock is very close to a lot of the amenities of Metro Atlanta, all of the things to do that you would find there. Woodstock is very close in proximity to there, but it still has a lot of rural feeling parts to the city. It's mainly the city center of Woodstock that has that urban feel. The rest of Woodstock is much more open areas with homes that have large land lots. And in general, I would still describe Woodstock as a quiet suburban town. It's just the city center that has this much activity. There are certainly a lot of great things about Woodstock. If you want to check out a video that I made where I went on a tour of the city, check out this video. I'll see you there.